All right, well, welcome back to another episode of Between Sundays at the Lake. And again, on this episode, we're going through the book Commonly Misunderstood Bible Verses. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. In the last episode, we went through 2 Samuel and 1 and 2 Kings. Today, we're going to look at 2 Chronicles and then Ezra and Esther. So we're going to look at those three today. A couple questions out of those. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, and I'll give you a little backstory on this. So Asa, King Asa was a king in Judah, and he actually started out doing really, really well. He cleansed all of Judah from all of the idols. He got his grandmother from being the queen mother because she had done some things she shouldn't have done. So he was actually started out doing really, really well as the king of Judah and doing what God wanted him to. And then he has this moment where he goes to battle and he goes to war, and he kind of cuts God out and goes straight to another king, king of Aram. The king of Aram. He kind of, instead of relying on God to help him win the battle, he cuts God out of that situation and goes straight to the king to get him out of the situation he's gotten himself in. So the question that's here is posed at 2 Chronicles 16:12. It says, "Did King Asa die because he sought help from physicians and not the Lord?" So, I think that's actually a question that kind of some religions look at that say, you shouldn't go to the doctor. You should just trust that God's going to heal everything. But I guess to answer that question real quick, and then we can go on to that subject there. But it says, did King Asa die because he sought help from physicians, not the Lord? In this instance, I would say yes, only because that's exactly what the Bible says. Because he chose to solely rely on the physicians and forget about God. He never once, I know when something, especially with health-wise, happens really bad, the first thing I do is pray.
Yeah.
That's my first instinct. And then obviously I'm going to call the doctor. But I think in this instance, it's not necessarily that he went to the physician, and that's where people are going to go. And I think that's the where, if people are asking you that question, that's probably where they're trying to trip you up is, oh, well, God let him die because he went to the doctor. No, God let him die because he changed his dependence from God to the physician.
No. Did you mention the part about the good old prophet Hanani? You did? No, you didn't. I was going to say, if you said it, I missed it. There's a couple verses after that, because it's referencing pretty much just verse 12 in chapter 16. But before that, it's verses 7 to 9 where it's talking about there's a seer or a prophet named Hanani that kind of goes up to Asa, be like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. And Asa just gets really upset and imprisons him. So it's not only the fact that he didn't go to God, but it's also the fact that when the opportunity presented himself for him to go to God, he got angry and ticked off and pursued further away from God.
Well, he had already been, and that's kind of at the beginning what we were talking about is he had already been warned once about skipping over God, and going to somebody else. And this is kind of the second option. So I guess
that was with the war.
Yeah, that was with the war.
Yeah.
And this is, he got some kind of disease that started in his feet, and then increasingly came to. It sounds almost. Being modern day medicine sounds almost like maybe diabetes. Because it started in his feet and kind of worked its way up.
I can't think of all the things that might have been embedded though into his feet.
Yeah, it could have been
just from
gangrene or
walking around either barefoot or
sandals.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will try to use this to say that God killed him. Well, no, it doesn't say that God killed him. It just says that God didn't heal him.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, especially nowadays. I think we talked about it either last episode or a couple episodes ago. Sometimes God just doesn't. He hears our prayer, and his answer is just no.
Yeah.
We can ask him to heal whatever we want, but it doesn't mean he's going to. But in this, it points out the fact that God just Asa just completely disregarded God in the situation.
Like entirely.
Like just completely and totally relied on the physician. Look, God puts people, and I remember hearing somebody one time, and it was the most ridiculous thing. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard is there was a pastor that was telling a group of kids that all the boys in there should become pastors, and the only reason that girls go to college is so they can find their husband. Like, that was what he said, and I went, well, wait a minute. Wild. I was like, time out. So if that's the case, then we have no Christian doctors, we have no Christian lawyers, we have no Christian engineers. Yeah. God puts those people in those places for a purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, look, physicians certainly have their place. They don't take the place of God, even though some of them may think they do. Yeah. But they don't take the place of God. No. We have to rely on God first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, two sides of a coin kind of thing. Did he die because he went to the physicians, not the Lord? Yes. Does that mean you're going to die if you go to a physician? No. Right. you know what I mean? Yeah, so yes.
I think the whole point of all of that, though, is to point to us, to remind us that no matter what happens, we go to God first.
Yeah.
But so often, what do? We just skip God and we try to handle it ourselves.
Yeah.
Or trust somebody else. When we have a question, when we're looking for wisdom from, the first thing you need to do is ask God to give you wisdom.
Yeah.
Then you go to people. Because people are flawed. People are, we're all flawed.
Yeah.
But
the book goes on to mention about what you would call physician-like activity. With Isaiah the prophet, he commanded him to prepare basically a bowl of figs for a boil, and then that healed, and that was in, and he recovered. That was 2 Kings 20, chapter 20, verse 7. Mm-hmm. And then Paul telling Timothy, stop drinking only water and use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. 1 Timothy 5:23. So those are instances of people kind of, taking on the role of a physician, as in, you have this ailment, I know it can cure you. It's a recommendation on this is what you should do. And in both instances, it worked.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of it is God really had something against physicians. He wouldn't have let Luke write a gospel because Luke was a physician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and going, I guess going further into that, there are, I don't know what you want to call it, religions. There are sects of religion that don't believe in doctors and don't believe in, and look, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But they try to frame it as they don't believe in doctors because God will heal them. Yeah. And he can. But God also put doctors here for a purpose.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people all the time, I'm so glad God created the man that created air conditioning, especially living in Florida. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I don't know, I don't know who actually came up with that idea, but he was a wonderful person. You know what I'm saying? But,
yeah.
but that's the thing. We have to have, and that's the problem. If every Christian only focused on, and don't get me wrong, I guess let me qualify by saying, every one of us, no matter what we do, no matter what our profession is, our one and only job is to glorify God. That's our only job.
Yeah.
But that's our number one priority. But God puts people in places so that we have those Christian doctors and Christian lawyers and, hopefully Christian politicians.
Yeah.
Or at least somewhat professing Christian politicians.
Yeah, somewhere in the vicinity.
Yes, somewhere in the roundabout.
Yeah.
But, hopefully we have that. Because if every person that was a Christian was a pastor, we wouldn't have any Christian anything else.
Yeah.
So that would be a little silly. So I personally don't think that Asa died because he went to the doctor. Yeah. He died because he just completely circumvented God and relied solely on man. And when we rely solely on man, it's gonna fail because we're flawed people.
Yeah.
Right. One of the biggest things that I pray for when people ask me to pray for being sick is I pray for wisdom for the doctors.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think it's cool, and I don't know if this is going to spawn more conversation about the topic, or it's just a cool thing to kind of walk away with. But I was curious because I wasn't sure what the genealogy was between David and Asa. David fathered Solomon. Solomon fathered Rehoboam. Rehoboam fathered Abijah or Abijam, depending on where you're at. And then Abijah fathered Asa. And the reason why I bring it up is because it's so cool to see such a similar situation that happened to both David and Asa. Because we talked about David, last podcast, if not the podcast before that, whichever one it was, with Bathsheba and the things that he did wrong. When he was presented with the fact that he was wrong, he repents and went to God. Mm-hmm. When Asa was presented, both by prophets, both in a kind of similar vein, they both sought, human, fixes, but when Asa got presented with it, he went away from God. It's just interesting to see how something just generations before, almost in a very similar manner. And you could even debate saying that what David did was worse than what Asa did, and yet Asa got punished for it, or maybe not punished is the right word, but was not healed for it and responding in anger over just an illness. Mm-hmm. Whereas David saw, oh yeah, no, I did what was wrong. I need to go back to God in it. So it's interesting, just the parallel there.
Yeah, and it's just it's one of those questions. It's a number one. It's a does it really matter question. Yeah. Number two, it's almost like a question that has an obvious answer, which is no, he didn't die because he went to the doctor. He died because he chose to take God out of the loop.
Yeah, out of the picture. Yep.
So Dr. Evans, I was reading it while Jordan was talking. It says that he writes this. He says we should be grateful for the blessings of the doctors of modern medicine, but ultimately all healing comes from God. Yeah. And I guess that kind of sums it all up. So listen, don't think because you're a Christian you can't go to the doctor. Yeah. If you choose not to go to the doctor, that's your choice, and but don't say, well, I can't go to the doctor because I'm a Christian because God's going to heal me. Right. Well, God may heal you, and He can heal you, but the difference is that God may have put that physician in your life. Yeah. And using him to heal you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. God very well might use that doctor as his way of healing you. It may not be a supernatural, healing thing that goes on. It may just simply be the wisdom and the ability he gave the doctor to do it.
Yeah, and I wanted your guys' take on this. The book goes on to talk about how Jesus said it is not the healthy who need a physician, but the sick. Granted, that's talking about Jesus and our sin, sick in our sin, and Jesus. But he's emphasis, talking on the lines of physician and people being ill. So, Yeah, but
like I said, if God didn't want people to be doctors, He would have never let a doctor write one of the Gospels.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point.
That is a very good point. And Acts. So He wrote 2 of the books in the New Testament. Yeah, and He was a physician. If God was against physicians, He wouldn't have let Luke write those.
That's a good point.
That's the part of the Gospels.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a really good point.
Exactly. So I would venture to say that if you say that God's against the doctors, you're wrong.
I'll say there's evidence otherwise.
He could have found somebody else to utilize.
Absolutely.
Writing the Gospels.
Yeah, he could have used anybody. So that's the long and short of that question there. So here comes an interesting one out of Ezra. And this, listen, this is an interesting topic even within the church today, the universal church today, not necessarily our church, but the universal church today is it's a question of divorce. So in Ezra chapter 10, you have this situation that happens, and the question is, how could Ezra demand that the Israelites divorce their foreign wives and send them away along with the children born to them? So I guess the easy answer to that, I like to give the easy answer first. The easy answer to that is, according to Jewish law, they weren't allowed to marry people outside of the Jewish faith. Yeah. Or outside of the nation of Israel, I guess would be the better answer. Now, that's not to say, that's not to say that if somebody in that, and mainly because he didn't want we all, or the three of us, understand. If you're out there and you're married, you understand the influence that your wife or your husband can have on you, right? So if you start marrying these people that are pagan religions, they're going to have an influence on you, and God wants the Israelites to be set apart from everybody else. And when you start intermingling that, you're going to get a diluted people of God.
Forgive me for being scatterbrained, but who are we just talking about with the I have Solomon on my mind for some reason. Was it Solomon that had all the wives?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the concubines. And what did it say? They pulled him away from his God, and then he worshipped their gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess, like I said, the easy answer is, according to Jewish law, they were not allowed to do that. So when Ezra was trying to restore Israel back to where it was supposed to be, this was step one.
Yeah.
Right.
Take your wives, leave them, and send them packing.
Well, and in 3 it says, "Now let us make a covenant before our God to send away all these women and their children in accordance with the counsel of my Lord and those who fear the commands of our God. Let it be done according to the law. Rise up. This matter is in your hands. We will support you to take courage and do it." They're not doing it because, they had a small disagreement with their wives. They're separating themselves from what could,
And you can kind of infer from what Ezra's saying, I think,
in
too,
the name of God,
Right.
not because of my feelings got hurt or.
Right. And I think you can almost infer too from, if you read that whole thing, in its context, which is what you need to do most of the time. But when you start debating people on the Bible and on your faith, they're going to pick and choose these one little verses and try to use them instead of using it in context. If you can infer from looking at the whole thing that seemed like what was going on was, not only did they marry these people from a pagan religion, those wives were not willing to give up those pagan gods and basically assimilate, or whatever you want to call it, into the Jewish culture. So they weren't willing to give up their gods for the one true God. So it's like, okay, so if we want to be a nation set apart, then we're going to have to send the bad seed away.
Right, we're gonna have to be apart.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, whatever
be
it
a
is
division
that's
there.
causing us not to be what we're supposed to be, we got to get rid of it. Same thing in our life. I mean, that's how I kind of look at it. We can get stuck on the divorce thing if we want here in a minute, but I think the way I kind of looked at this was, in Galatians 5, I think it's 9, it says that a little leaven leavens the whole bread, right? So a little bit of bad, just a little bit, can ruin the whole thing. So you let just a little bit of pagan worship in, or a little bit of pagan idols in. I mean, we see that over and over again with the Israelites. You let just that one little, you give Satan an inch, he takes the whole turnpike, right? You give Satan a foothold, he's climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, to get rid of what may be causing the issues, the easiest thing to do is enforce and enact the Jewish law that says you can't do that, and send them home.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Ezra said, kill them all, right? I mean,
Right, yeah.
Because God could have done that.
Yeah.
God could have given that command because they weren't willing to follow him, and he'd given them plenty of chances.
Yeah.
But instead, he sent them back home. It's not like he, just killed them and, he said kill them all and, but no, he just sent them home.
Right. They're like, there's mercy in that.
Right.
It's not, it all goes back to God's people need to do what God said to do.
Right.
It's in the Old Testament, it was integral. Like, hey, this is one of God's laws. You need to marry your own.
Yeah.
And as a way of mercy, like you said, he didn't say to kill him. He just said, hey, this is not a union that I said is okay.
Right.
Split.
And to talk about divorce, I mean, I think we all know about scripture that talks about, adultery, and if that happens, the circumstances surrounding it. But 1 Corinthians 7:15 says, "But if the unbeliever leaves, let him do so. A believing man or woman is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace." So, excuse me. It just says if they are an unbeliever or become an unbeliever, to just let them walk out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
evidently these pagan spouses were not believers.
yeah. Well, and this,
Right,
this may be a hot take here. I'm just going to throw this out there for any of you.
Are we 2 in a row?
Well, this may be a hot take for whatever, but any of you guys, ladies that are listening, teenagers that are listening that are single, the first question you need to ask somebody that you're dating is about their faith.
Yeah.
And I'm just, you can say whatever you want. I don't care. You can disagree with me, and that's fine. You don't have to listen to me. But if they're not a Christian, you need to stop dating them now.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that you don't stay with them, hang out with them, get them to church, get
Influence
them to faith,
them.
influence them. But here's what I can promise you: more than likely, what's going to happen is if you choose. I mean, the Bible talks about it. Karl just read it. If you choose to let that, if you're a believer and you choose to date an unbeliever, I promise you this: they are going to influence you more than you're going to influence them, because it's much easier to fall on the non-believing side than it is to fall on the believing side.
The wide way and the narrow way.
Yeah, it's more difficult to live your life out for Christ. It's more difficult. So when you introduce somebody in it that's trying to pull you away from that, it's a lot easier to pull somebody away than it is to pull somebody in.
Yeah, even from an effort standpoint, it takes a lot of effort to walk like Christ. You know, to where if that's not their decision, then, you know, like most any other instance, you know, I always bring up there's the Minn Kota trolling motors had a commercial, and it said, why give 100% if you get by with 50? So that's kind of like that's like and it was like the, you know, the lever that you like pick it up out of the water. It was like easier than any other model. But the nature of humanity is that if there's an easy route 99% of the time, we're gonna take it.
Yeah. There and just to say it, you know, like, I've only, in my lifetime, have I only seen one relationship work out to where the non-Christian part of that became Christian, and their fervor and desire for the Lord is incredible. That's one time. Like, it is certainly not the normal for it, and I think that's the point. You know?
Well, I've seen it happen a time or two.
Yeah.
But here's what I can tell you: the many years between those two happenings
It's hard.
was hell on earth.
Yeah.
Like, because you have one person trying to walk with Christ and follow God, and you have the other person going, "What do you care for?"
Yeah.
Right. But you know, when Karl was talking about, it's a perfect example. I mean, it's when Karl was talking about the Minn Kota, it made me think of my favorite fishing commercial I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I think it's for like Ranger bass boats or something. I don't even remember. Anyway, this guy takes his date fishing. Right. And she's sitting on the back of the boat in the seat, and she's on the phone with her friend talking just trash. I can't believe I got all dressed up to go on a date, and he took me fishing. And I mean, just going off. And he's up in the front of the boat just casting and fishing. And then she says something. She goes, "I don't think this is going to work out." And he looks down, and there's this little button on the front of his deck of his boat, and he just steps on it. When he steps on it, the back seat ejects and sends her off the back of the boat. And it says pick your relationships well, or something like that. But I'm like, but that's perfect.
A good button.
Like, I mean, it's like a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. If you're not married, now, let me preface it by saying that if you're not in a marriage relationship right now,
if you have not chosen permanently,
if you are just dating, if you're dating someone that is not a believer, just step on the eject button. Like, it doesn't mean that you don't care for them. It doesn't mean that you completely cut them out of your life. But you can't date because you're going two different directions. It's not going to work. So
there's no reason not to, you know, like you said, end that relationship and then still, you know, mentor, disciple, you know, pour into one another and see if that's where God leads it.
Right, because I mean, if you step away from that relationship, you may realize at that moment, this isn't where I'm supposed to be anyway.
Right.
You may both realize that.
Yeah.
Well, and for the non-believer, it could just speak volume for the believer, as in, man, they really hold this to their heart. Like, they really believe this. They really stand firm on it, and maybe I should, you know, give it a chance and look into it a little bit further. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing, just for talking about marriages, and like, I mean, it's a great warning for those, you know, still dating or engaged or whatever. But one thing I told your son and his now wife when we were doing the premarital counseling is that marriage is designed by God to reflect Christ's relationship with the church. Like, that's the point of marriage, is to bring unity and to glorify God in it. Which, saying that, going back to the question for it, it was not a relationship that glorified God.
Right.
It was not what He had designed. And there's a hot button social issue we could talk about in that aspect too, of, you know, if things were to change and those individuals got saved and believed, then what do they do with their marriage? You know, which I don't know if we want to go down that route or not, but point blank, the idea is that be in a relationship that's going to glorify God, not put you in a odd situation.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, and look.
Well, it said that we're supposed to live in peace.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much peace in a household that's divided, especially through.
I mean, the
spiritual
Bible
division.
tells us the house can't be divided.
Yeah.
Right.
But let me expressly, very clearly make this statement: Pastor Zeb, nor Pastor Jordan, nor Pastor Karl is saying that if you are married to leave your significant other, because that's none of us are saying that.
Correct.
It's not what we're saying, okay?
Correct.
Hear me when I say this. If
Yeah.
you are in a marriage, do not go what Pastor Zeb said. No,
Yeah.
Pastor Zeb is not telling you to leave your husband or wife. That is not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay? What I'm saying is, if you are in a dating relationship,
Yeah.
and one of you is a believer and one of you is not, then that relationship is not going to work the way it's supposed to, because you can't honor God if one person isn't honoring
Right.
God.
Yeah.
So,
Not only the sense of salvation, but the sense of ideas. This is okay to me, not okay to you, and you
Right.
know, the issues that come along with that
Yeah.
down the road.
exactly. Look, I give you all the dating advice that I give the teenagers all the time, which is you take the Bible with you when you go on a date and put it between the two front seats, because it's real hard to climb over Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to get to your boyfriend or girlfriend. Right? So, I mean, you just put it there. I'm not saying it's going to stop everybody.
Begins to crawl. Oh, hey, Jesus. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's all right.
but no, I think that's the key to this, is we see the how much Ezra wanted to keep, number one, the laws that God had given him,
Right.
and number two,
And
he realized where it would go
Yeah.
if he didn't do this, even though I'm sure people were mad at him.
Yeah, and setting them apart.
Oh,
from,
I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure people
Yeah.
were very upset.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, we don't know, because it doesn't tell us, that some of those wives may have said, you know what, I don't want to leave, I want to be part. And we know that happened at times, because we have an example of Rahab. Right? We may have an example of Rahab, who went from living in Jericho to being called an Israelite and actually being in the lineage of Jesus. So she was able to do that. So we don't know, because it doesn't tell us. We don't know that
Yeah.
some of those people, it may have just been the fact that he sent away the ones that refused, that were willing to, that wanted to hold on to their pagan gods, and not accept God as the one true God. So,
Yeah.
all right. Anything else on that, guy?
Just
Huh?
be in a relationship that glorifies God and how He
Yeah.
designed it to be.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
that's
look,
all I'll
and
say.
here's what look. Make sure you know what you're getting into before you get into it.
Yes.
Like that, I think that's the most important thing, because, I never understood why a Christian man, or especially a Christian man or a Christian woman, teenagers I can kind of give some grace to, because a little bit, not much, but a little bit of grace to them.
Not a lot, but
I mean, just enough. But especially if you're an adult and you are a professing Christian, one of the first things you should figure out is if the person you're wanting to date believes the same thing you do.
yeah.
Like, that should be the first and foremost. Like,
Yeah.
you can ask both my boys when they come home, they'd be like, "Hey, I'm dating." Da, da, da. I'm like, "Well, does she go to church? Is she a Christian?" I don't know. How do you not know?
Yeah. Ask.
Like,
To-
just
to-
ask the question.
Without saying names, there's a young gentleman that comes to our church, and this was a couple months, if not a couple years ago. He had asked a girl out on a date, and he said, "Hey, you want to come to church with me on Sunday?" And she goes, "No, I'm a Satanist." And he goes, "Oh, never mind." It's like,
exactly.
okay, like
Exactly.
sometimes it really does need to be, not sometimes, it really needs to be
Yeah.
one of the first things you talk about.
Well, God should be your first priority, right? In everything we do.
Right. So it should be the
Including
first thing
your
out of
dating
your
life.
mouth.
Yeah.
Yep.
It should be, if he's your first priority in everything, including your dating life, then the person you're dating should also have the same thing, because, it would be very difficult if any of us were, Crystal knows that in my life, she takes second priority to God.
Yeah.
She's my first priority on earth,
Yep.
but she's my second priority when it comes to everything in general, which God comes first.
Yep.
And if you have somebody that doesn't have that same understanding, and you tell your wife, "Well, you're my second priority," she's probably going to get a little upset at you.
Yeah.
If she's not a Christian and doesn't have that same thing, because I know that I'm second priority. I play second fiddle to God in Crystal's life as well.
Yeah.
So,
That mutual understanding.
right, and you have to have that mutual understanding. And if you're not both in the same belief when it comes to God and to your faith and to Christianity in your Christian walk, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
let's jump over here to this one. Really, there's really no questions necessarily in Esther. Well, let me give you the cool thing. I did a whole study in Esther with the teenagers. I don't know however many years ago that was. Esther is the only book. We were talking about this earlier. Esther is the only book in the Bible. The only book in the Bible that does not mention the name of God. So the question in here is, it asks, that question that it asked is, if God is not mentioned in the book of Esther, why is it in the Bible? And here was my understanding of it, was that even though God's name may not have been mentioned, quote unquote, in that book, you can see God working through that entire book.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to me gives us Jesus said, he told his disciples, I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically he told his disciples, it's great that you believe, but you saw me die, you saw me buried, you saw me raised from the dead, you saw me after I was resurrected, but the ones that have never seen me and still have faith are greater, right? So, I mean, the thing I love about the book of Esther is it shows us that just because the name of God isn't brought up in there doesn't mean that you can't see God.
Yeah, like
you can't see God working. Just because God didn't audibly speak to Esther or Mordecai in this, you can still see God working in the background.
Yeah, it's like if you had a documentation of somebody's life, and nothing was mentioned about God, but
Right.
you as a believer know that God is real and He works through all things. You can look at somebody's life and kind of say, that's a God thing, and then
Right.
that you could see God in a quote unquote story that necessarily isn't projecting the message of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, while it doesn't explicitly say the name of God in that whole book, which was interesting to me, I mean, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I was 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago when we did that. That was the first time I'd ever actually realized that God was not mentioned in that book.
Yeah.
But it is kind of interesting to see, even though He's not mentioned, He's still working.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. There was I wish I could remember the song name or if I could even find it at all. But when I was a teenager, there was a CD that we had bought where one of the songs was like who God is in every book of the Bible. And I can't remember specifically what Esther was in it, but it was along the lines of like God our intercessor. The beauty of Esther is that even though it doesn't say or talk about God in it, we can see God being reflected in it by the fact that Esther interceded on the behalf of her people, despite the evil plot going on to destroy her people, right? It's no different than us. It's the gospel. Like Christ interceded on our behalf,
Right.
saving us from sin and death, right?
Right.
So like it's just the image of the gospel is really what Esther is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just the image. But no, it's just funny, like looking at the story and thinking about it. Like when we were talking about the questions we were going to do, before we recorded, we were talking about this one specifically. And I kind of just looked over at Karl. I'm like, yeah, it's almost like if a random Israelite in the Exodus recanted the story of the Exodus and had no really clue what was going on other than the fact that they just decided to walk away from Egypt and a bunch of frogs fell out of the sky, like one of those things. Like, from his perspective, there may not have been a lot of God in the story. Just kind of how it is here in Esther. Like, you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah, there's not a lot of audible God in the story.
Not a lot of audible
but
God.
there's a lot of God
visual,
in the story.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's the cool thing about it is we can't physically see God.
Right.
We can't physically hear God.
Yeah.
But we can look. I mean, you can look at outside. We can look out the window right here and see the lake and the trees and realize that there is a God and that God does work and that God's here. We can see it in everything that we do. Like Karl said, you look back on your life and you go, oh, I didn't even realize at that time, but that was God. That was a God thing.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of stories of from 9/11. The lady that was supposed to, she was supposed to be in the North Tower, but when she was walking to work, somebody bumped into her and spilled and knocked her coffee all over. She had to go back to the house and change her clothes, so she was an hour late. Had she been on time, she'd have been in the tower.
Sure.
Yeah.
The guy that his car broke down, and he had just had it serviced, a brand new car.
Yeah.
And just had it serviced and everything, and his car broke down, and shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But because his car broke down, he didn't make it to work, And you can look back at those moments and go, oh, that was a God thing.
Yeah.
For sure that was a God thing.
Well, with that's why, and for those of you who don't know, I'm turning 31 this year. And so I was, 6 when 9/11 happened. I think it's partly because of, those stories that happened in 9/11. a lot of perception has changed to where if something bad happens, the first thought is, I wonder what God just saved us from. Or like, I wonder like what's happening to where, this happened or whatever,
Yeah, it's that maturity because
Yeah.
spiritual maturity and I was thinking, even in bad situations, circumstances, events that are like, most people say, well, why would God let that happen or things of that nature. But like at the same time, like I know He's working through it. He's working in it, and like it's eventually going to lead to Him. And it's like that's a first thought of mine. What's God doing now? Like what's God doing for His sake?
Yeah.
Well, and
through this,
And who are we to question what God's plan is?
Right.
Like, that leads into a whole nother. We won't chase that rabbit but it's the why do bad things happen to good people? Well, who's good people?
Read
I
Habakkuk.
think we even didn't we just talk about that last podcast?
But
Yeah,
it's
we
like,
did.
it's like who's good people? So. But yeah, I think the crazy thing is, in the book of Esther, is you can just see over and over again God's hand on it.
Yeah.
You don't hear His voice, you don't see His name,
Yeah.
but you can see over and over again He's working in it, and He's in control of everything.
Yeah, it's comforting because for Esther, at least from the point of view that we see, God's in the silence, Right. And there's comfort in that because I don't remember where it is in Scripture. It's one of those verses that I just know it's there. I don't quite remember the reference for it. But it's the idea of don't doubt God just because you don't see or hear what's going on, because there's so many people of like, man, I feel like God's abandoned me. Or, man, I feel like He's not there. What's He doing? Blah, blah, blah. No, He's still active. Just because you don't see something or you don't hear something don't mean that He's not there doing it.
Well, that's when you
there's
stand on
comfort
the
in the silence there.
You stand on the promises of God and what His Word tells us.
Right. And that was something. So, like last night, we wrapped up Habakkuk. I just covered the entirety of chapter 3. And, oh, Lord, there went the rabbit. There went. I watched it run away. What was I saying? Lord have mercy. We were talking about in chapter 3, and the idea of it is we can have confidence in who God is because of all the stuff that He's done before. He continually saves. He continually heals. He continually protects. All these different things. So in the silence, we can rest in the promises of God. He'll never leave or forsake us.
Yep.
Take Deuteronomy 13 or 31. Take Hebrews 13. Whatever. It's the idea of we can rest in knowing that God is there and God will still be there, even if we don't see it.
Yeah, there's no scripture that says He'll do these things up to this point.
Yeah.
There's no
cutoff date.
Right,
there's no deadline.
Right. You've got up to this point to be redeemed.
Right, exactly. Now it's on your own.
As in, like God and who He is. He always has been, always will be who He is.
Yeah, God. No matter what we do, God's plan is going to prevail.
Yes.
And that's what you see in Esther, is other people making plans for the Israelites to basically eradicate them, and God using Esther, even though He didn't speak to her, used her in the position that He put her in to save His people. So, it's neat to look at that book and see everything that God does, even though He doesn't speak. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't think I've ever heard God audibly speak, like out loud, like Moses did. And He didn't in here, but it still worked. Yeah. His plan still prevailed. And so I think that's an encouragement to us that even though we may not hear God speak, we can see the things that God does through the things and the circumstances that happen. So, and I'm sure that Esther, even in the moment, didn't understand that. But looking back on her life at the end of her life, she probably went, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah, it all makes sense.
I get it. Yep. So, but yeah. So that's those all the way through Esther, and then we'll look at the book of Job, I think, on the next episode.
Yep.
And then we'll if there's some question, again, if there's some question y'all have, if y'all throw them in the comments, we'll look at them and see if we can't at least try to answer them.
Even something that's like kind of sparked your interest, like something that's intriguing to you that you kind of like stumbled upon or heard or saw, and you're like, I wonder, maybe a correlation between this and that, and connecting the dots of something. We'd love to research it and look into it.
Yep. Even if it's a book we've already done.
Yeah.
Don't matter.
Yeah, we can go back. It doesn't matter. We can. If we get enough questions, we'll just spend an entire episode answering questions.
Yep. I love to do like a Q&A end of the year type deal.
Yeah.
Send in your comments so we could do a Q&A.
We could go live.
We could do
With a
well,
chat.
maybe not. Just a random Sunday morning. No, with a chat. Yeah,
Yeah,
do
with
like
a
live
chat.
stream,
Yeah,
whatever.
live stream.
That'd be
And
cool.
then Q&A. End
that'd be
of the
cool.
year Q&A.
Oof. I think we got to have. All right, here's the deal. If y'all want us to do a live chat, according to YouTube's rules, we're going to need a lot more subscribers to go live.
So
on
subscribe.
Do you? What do you have to have a certain amount
Hit
of
the bell.
YouTube. Yeah,
I think it's like
to go live?
1,000
I think
subs.
it's 1,000 or something like that.
Really?
So, yeah. But that's all right. I mean, we
I
can.
mean, it's bandwidth that's being used by YouTube.
We'll buy them.
Buy the bots. Buy the
They
bots.
have
Buy
websites.
the
for
bots.
We
this.
have proxies.
Buy the
We will
bots.
buy subscribers. Don't worry, folks. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it work.
For all two of you. You know, we'll make sure. that
Trevor,
we'll have one.
Andrew, tune in.
No, I know,
Well,
I
also
know,
Courtney.
okay.
I know Crystal listens, but it's probably after. So
Yeah.
I don't know if she'd want. She hears me enough. I don't think she'd want to listen to me live.
Yeah.
But,
That's
but no, we do have
incredible.
a couple of. We got some couple of special episodes coming up. So you're going to want to tune into those over the next few weeks for sure. We got some special guests that are going to come in here in a few episodes. So.
Maybe we'll spill the beans in like the title of it. So when you see it, we'll know.
You're just gonna
The title's just going to
figure
be
it out.
spilling the beans.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, but make
What a
sure you check
reveal.
in.
What a
So,
reveal. Yeah.
But we got two little special guests that came in about halfway through. So I'm gonna get the middle one here. He's the troublemaker, right? Yeah. August said, yeah, he's the troublemaker.
Yeah.
We're gonna get Liam and August came in. And we were halfway through, and they've been sitting pretty quiet over there.
Yeah, they did
So
good.
I'm gonna get Liam to pray us out since we pray out at the end. You good with that?
Yeah.
You should. All right, get over here close so they can hear you. All right. Go ahead.
Dear just here, Father, for today. Hope you can heal the people that are wounded. I hope you guys follow God with Pastor Jordan, Pastor Zeb, and Mr. Karl. And I hope you guys have a great night, a great day. In Jesus' name, pray, amen.
Hey, we'll catch you guys again on the next go round. All right.